And welcome, everybody. This is the pilot episode number 1 of the Crash the Net podcast. I am your host, Grizgol, and I will be joined by Stonewall Civ tonight. You want to take us through the contents of what we will be covering on this first episode? And here's our table of contents, and we are going to go over an introduction on who each of us are. We are going to go over our podcast objectives. We're going to go over some drama with what's going on with Kings Coast 3, with Catch-22, Rise to Fame, and Red Light District. Then we are getting into the nitty-gritty with the ESHL top 10 at each position list, and we'll close it out with some closing comments and take us into the next one. And here's a little bit of an introduction on who we are, and I will let Stonewall introduce himself and tell us a little bit about yourself, Stone.
So I'm Stonewall. I'm one of the goalies across the esports and LG community. Currently with Catch-22. We'll touch a little bit more deeper on what's going on with that later. But this has been in the works for a little bit, so we're definitely happy to finally get it off the ground.
And just a little bit about me, I have started doing ESHL broadcasting. I'm the LG Media Director alongside Swifty, and I'm also the LG AHL Commissioner. And move us on to the next slide. And here is a little bit of podcast objectives, kind of what we're bringing to you guys, why we started this podcast, and we want to create a dedicated space for ESHL coverage. We want to bring a unique perspective to the league. We want to bring sit-down interviews with top players to you guys and kind of get some of the social and mental impact that this game has on them, as well as covering some of the roster mania and discussing league drama. And we are getting a couple comments about the audio. Stone, if you want to turn us up a little bit on your end.
I think we're good.
Think we're good? All right. Do you have anything to say about these podcast objectives? A little bit why you joined, why you want to do this?
I think a lot of guys can agree that we've been kind of needing some content around the esports space. A lot of the content seems to be around periodic LG events, pre-draft, post-draft stuff. And esports has really taken a life of its own recently. And I mean, it's always evolving. There's always something going on, especially in like the last 12 months. There always seems to be an event going on or a lead up to an event. And just with yesterday alone, so much drama is already going on. So it'll be a nice it'll be nice to have kind of a hub to kind of go over these types of things, and just have something that the community can rally behind and grow to where we think this thing can go.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did mention a lot of the drama that unfolded yesterday in the Kings Coast Cup event number 3. You want to bring us into the next slide, and we can kind of dig into some of these issues that are going on. So here is the Catch-22. This is obviously your team. I'm going to let you run with this one. You have all the info on it, and take us through what's going on with your team.
All right, so first night went okay. Definitely could have improved on things. The team was going over some stuff. I'll give it as in depth as I can, but I mean it is my team, so I'm gonna keep a few things behind the scenes. I'm not gonna go into super specifics. But what happened was there was a dispute on what the roster was gonna look like going into the next night. Some guys disagreed with that. Unfortunately, the guy that disagreed with it the most had the most power over the roster. So as we were loading into the first game, the owner not only was switching out the lineup of what the lineup was going to be, he was switching it back to what he wanted it to be, which was putting himself in. So we just decided to end up running the games anyway. By like halfway through the night, we noticed that the GM and the AGM both lost their status. So there's only one manager, so to speak, on the team that can do managerial roster things with the team. So we have teams hitting us up midnight asking if we're still playing. That our owner told us that we're forfeiting, and we had to tell them that we're still playing and whatnot. And by the end of the night, we found out that all of our wins had turned into forfeits, which turned into its own headache that really didn't resolve itself. I mean, even to this point, because the forfeits have been turned back into wins, which is wonderful, but we basically can't play anymore because the owner doesn't want us to. We were told by the league that he basically has final say, and if he wants to fold the team, he has every right to, which creates kind of a sticky situation because I'm new to these guys. I haven't really played with them too much in the past, but I was told this is his first time playing with them on the Catch-22 brand. It's 100% somebody else's brand. I do know that, and I verified that. So I don't know. It's weird because I'm technically the new guy, and this show's kind of putting me on the spot to delve into specifics, but basically where it stands is we're not playing, and it's because of the owner.
And I'm gonna chime in on this, and I see some like defund Shorty comments in the chat, and it's kind of out of Shorty's hands as well. I did talk to both Shorty and Brody on this, and their hands are kind of tied too because they lead on with what the sponsors want, and the sponsors wanted one person for each team to be completely responsible for that team. What that means is that player will be the only direct communicator for that team. They are the decider for that team. They get the money should the team get a payout, and that's what the sponsors want. So that goes hand in hand with making those roster decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that moving forward we cannot fix this and say, hey, one guy cannot fold a team. There needs to be a legitimate dispute that causes a team to not be able to field a roster, and only in that case would the team fold, because that's not this case. If correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have every single other roster player and TC on this team aside from the owner willing to still play.
We literally have 8 players willing to play. It's the 9th player that's the issue, and unfortunately the way that the rules are written, the owners have so much power that they can literally at the snap of a finger just decide that the team's not playing. I made an example in Discord, if anybody had seen it that's here now, that if Hendry just decided he didn't want Entourage to play anymore, he could just decide that Entourage is all done. It doesn't matter what all the other guys want to do. That team's done. That's basically what's happening with us. And it sucks. I think at the absolute least, it's going to create a rule change, which I guess we're going to be the guinea pigs in this case, where we don't have to worry about this problem ever again. But it really never should have came to this point where one person has that much jurisdiction over the entire team. There needs to be some type of, I guess, safeties in place to prevent something like this.
Right, I think there definitely will be something moving forward. Again,
I mean,
I'm not ESHL staff. A lot of people think that I am. I'm not. So I don't have a say in this kind of stuff, but I do give my thoughts on things that we can change for ESHL. And that is something that I brought up immediately to both Shorty and Brody, that something needs to happen to fix this moving forward. I understand that we might not be able to do anything for this particular case based on how the rules are written, but moving forward, this cannot happen again. This is something that is just absolutely tragic to happen, and it sucks that one person is deciding the fate of an entire team. And I do not agree with that at all. That's something that should not happen.
And here's the thing that kind of simplifies it, because I know my explanation might have been a little bit all over the place. Here's the bare bones of the situation. The owner has taken away all management positions other than himself. So he has decided that if he is not in the lineup, we are not playing. And because of the rules around the actual ownership tag of somebody on a roster, if he does not change his mind and we don't want to play with him in the lineup, we just literally don't play. So it's either we play with him or he changes his mind and lets us play. Those are the two options.
Right. And part of it is, choosing the wrong owner, but another part is, why as an owner would you do that? I understand if you're upset that you get benched, but I mean, clearly you guys did better. You won 3 games that he then tried to turn into forfeit. But I don't want to waste too much time on this because we do have a lot to go through tonight. if you want to bring us into our next case.
Well, before we move on to the other thing, that was the other part that I forgot to leave out. Whoever signs up the team automatically gets owner, and that alone was the issue. So the rule itself needs to be changed, because people could go, like a random kid could go sign up Entourage and BBB, and then, I mean, if they want to be a prick about it, they literally can just hold on to the brand and the logo and everything, and then those guys have to go use something else. Is it the biggest thing in the world? No, but as it stands right now, the rules somewhat allow that, and that's kind of stupid. And what it boils down to is that's literally what just happened.
Right, and the next slide, I do have the final explanation from Shorty. If you bring us into the next slide, saying that the owner reached out to staff wishing to fold the team due to internal team issues. Again, this player was benched. That was the team issues. The team as a whole decided that they were better off with him not in the lineup. And as the owner, he had the say to fold the team. And that is what happened. So now you see that final sentence. If any team plays catch 22 over the next 6 games, they are forfeit wins. Even if the games are played, they will not count as the team has now folded. So that is all in the owner's hands to fix that. And again, let's move on to our next case here. I believe we have a red light district, a little bit of issues going on with them as well. And they got removed from the Kings Coast event due to second tagging. And we've seen this before in events. And is it, just why are you doing it? It's ESHL, and you look right there, you have just a player that was banned playing on a different account, and that's second tagging. So this team has been disqualified. Red light district is out of the Kings Coast Cup. And do you have anything to say on this one?
I mean, I kind of find this funny. I don't know if it's because I'm dealing with the catch-22 thing personally, but this, and when I say I find it funny, it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, you literally pick your roster. So, I mean, this is as slimy as it gets. You're literally getting around the ban, preventing him from playing, and just finding a backdoor way to get around the ban.
Yeah, absolutely. And our final one, Rise to Fame. I know this was one that you wanted to talk about. We have to bring this up because this is just, what are you doing?
This is great.
And I'll let you take it away.
So, if anybody remembers, there was an incident on a prior event. I don't recall which one it was, but it was this year. Pelly got dimed out on asking a team for a free win to help him qualify for playoffs, and it appears it's happened again. I don't have the group in front of me. I should, but he played Express. I believe this was this was the second game. It was the 9:30 game. They won the first game. They lost the second game. He threw some screenshots that he thinks vindicated him, and I think they kind of made the situation way worse, especially when A, you've already been accused, and I think he was found guilty of it the first time, and B, he deleted the VOD. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's pretty much an admission of guilt. But, I mean, what are we doing here? Why are we asking people for free wins to qualify for an event, especially a free to enter?
Yeah, I mean, you clearly see that they won 5-4, and then you see Pelly going and asking to turn it into a forfeit win. And the thing that gets me is they entered this originally on the site as a 5-4 win, then went and changed it to a forfeit win, and then Shorty went back and changed it to the 5-4 score. So clearly there's something going on. Whether or not Pelly says that there is,
that was the best part.
There's something going on here.
That was the best part. They entered in the score as a 5-4, and I can't remember if we put it up right here, but there was a screenshot that he posted that there's like 30 minutes unaccounted for, where like it just kind of jumps conversation where you're like, all right, what did you delete there? And I mean, a lot of people saw it. I was one of the people that saw it. The score was 5-4, and then it changed to a forfeit. So not only did he claimed that it was an arrangement that both teams were okay with it, which does not make it okay to begin with. That just makes it even more weird.
Absolutely.
But the fact that it was like he said it was like a thing that they discussed on stream, and that's why. And just an absolute mess.
And I will say, I'm getting some comments about the thing at the bottom. This game has been edited one time by Lem. That's completely on me. I got to own that mistake. I meant to include the one that said this game has been edited 3 times, with the last one being by Shorty. So my games just got mixed up there, and I screenshotted the wrong thing there. So I will own that mistake. And now we're going to go into our ESHL Ultimate Top 10 at each position list. Again, this is a top 10 at each position as voted on by you, the community. A list of games, top players at each position were given to 30 different players. Again, this list would be anywhere from 15 to 20 players, however many we saw fit to put on this list for these 30 players to vote on. And these 30 players filled out the list based on who they thought was 1 to 10 at each position. And these rankings were based on a point system. So, for example, if you are number 1 on that list, you get 10 points. If you're ranked number 2, you get 9 points. Ranked number 3, 8, etc., etc. These point totals were added up for each player, and the top 10 list was constructed for each position based off of their point totals. Now, shout out to Gabseh and Allz. They were the ones that originally put this together, and they collaborated with Stonewall and I. We kind of had a similar idea, but found out that they were already doing this, so we hit them up and said, hey, let's collab on this. We're going to do a podcast, and here we go. And also thank you to Wingels for providing the graphics that you will see following this. And the stats are only provided as a supplement. They did not determine the final rankings.
And it should be known that we did provide names, pretty like general names that we could all agree are in that upper echelon that are at least in the conversation, but we did leave it open-ended, and we encouraged anybody that if you felt like there was a name that wasn't there that should have been included, feel free to put them wherever you like. So it wasn't like here's 10 names, here's 15 names, here's 20 names. I think we gave some, depending on the positions, we gave anywhere between like 18 to 25 names to pick from and left it completely open-ended. So if the person taking filling out the list felt that there was a name that wasn't there, we left it open-ended and encouraged them to add anybody that they felt should be there.
Absolutely. And Wheels with the comment, I can't wait to win best of paralyzed goalie in the community. Wheels, obviously you are loved, very much loved in the community, and we support you all the way. And without further ado, let's get right into this one. We are going to start with our top 10 left defensemen. Bring us in at number 10. And here you are. We have Nuge, a name you might want there, a name you might not, as he was kicked off that Highlanders team. He does have some decent event history, finishing top 8 a couple times, top 16 a couple times. His better days are behind him at this point. He is under a point per game. You see a lot of times those elite defensemen are going to be right around 1 point per game. And his winning percentage as well, 63.8%. Do you have anything to say on Nuge?
I played an event with Nuge. Just speaking as a goalie behind him, he's definitely in that top tier. I think we're going to find it, especially in like all these positions, that I would say anywhere from, depending on the position, anywhere from like the 6 to 10 range is going to be highly debated. People are either going to think one of two things. They're going to think the person's too low, or they're going to think they shouldn't even be on the list at all. I don't know how people are going to feel about Nuge, but I did play an event with him. Behind the scenes, like scrims wise, communications wise, easy player to play with. I never really ran into issues with him. The team I had at that point was pretty positive, so that maybe had an effect to it as well. But I enjoyed playing behind him. I didn't really find that he had too many glaring weaknesses. So I mean, for the most part, I really enjoyed playing behind him. And it should be noted that when I was playing with him, he did play on both sides of the ice at different points in the event. So he definitely has some versatility to his game. Obviously, that comes from his versus play. But I think he's deserving of the spot, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to spend too much time on each position because we do have a lot to go through. So if we don't do a deep dive on every player, just know that that's kind of why we're going to roll along here and bring us into number 9. Number 9, SJ, 99. And you see that, again, I was talking about the points per game. He definitely is in the upper echelon. He's had multiple top 16 finishes. His best finish was top 4 on not this past CBJ event, but the one before that. And his scoring factor of 31 is pretty good among D-men. And winning percentage, almost 70%. Anytime you're around that number, you're a great D-man. He has a storied history, has been on the same team forever, and just a solid player coming in at number 9.
One thing we're going to notice about him as well is he's probably one of the fewer guys that only played on one team this year. So not only do I think that had something to do with his placing, it definitely had something to do with his points, because points as a D-man are definitely going to come a lot from chemistry, because offensive-minded D-men that are don't have a lot of chemistry with their forwards tend to have trouble getting as many points as like that 1 point per game tier.
Absolutely. And that comment's going to bring us right into number 8 and make a lot of sense there as well with the heroic Duck. And you see his points per game, 1.21. He is elite when it comes to helping his team get goals on the ice, and a scoring factor of 34, a winning percentage of 72.8. His best finish came in that Kings Coast Cup top 4, and they're still looking for that big victory out of hidden potential. And it's maybe the one thing that's kind of holding them back a little bit, why he's not higher on the list, is because they don't have that event win yet.
Yeah, definitely bouncing off of what I just was talking about. And you see his points per game is definitely, obviously, the highest of the 3 that we've already done. Duck's the same situation. He's been playing with the same guys forever. That Kings Coast Cup event was solid too. They looked very good, and to be honest with you, I think they stopped a little early. They should have at least made the finals with how good they were playing.
Yeah, they certainly had the best regular season out of maybe any Kings Coast event. That was a very good run. Cut a little bit short out of that club, and you're rooting for them to see it when they can finally get back to that finals and see if they can win one. And bring us on to number 7. It's Luigi. You see a couple of second place finishes, a top 8, a top 32, and missing playoffs in that first Kings Coast event. His points per game are a little lower, but still very respectable. Scoring factor a little lower as well. Winning percentage just under 60%. A very solid D-man in Luigi, who's played a lot of his club with the same players, yet again, with that instinct club.
Yeah, Luigi plays with the same kids no matter what he's doing, whether he's just messing around on club, playing LG, playing esports. He plays with the same guys. So I wouldn't really say the points per game thing really affects him too much, because anybody that has played with him knows that he plays a little bit more of a defensive style, because excuse me, a lot of the left wings that he plays with play super aggressive, so he can't really afford to rotate with them too much. But I mean, he's definitely had a great season. I don't know what happened that first Kings Cup, but he's had a pretty solid season through and through.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring us into number 6. And at number 6, we have Dupes, who played with that resilient squad for a little bit. Starstruck, Cohesion, and I believe, is that Denial? Is that logo Denial? I can't remember between the two.
Left to right, yeah. It's Resilience, Denial, Cohesion, and Starstruck.
Nuge says there's a rumor that Grizz said my better days are behind me. Yes, Nuge, that is correct. I believe your better days are in the rear view at this point. That doesn't mean you're not a top 10. Obviously, you were on the list. The community voted you into the top 10. It means you're top 10. And going back into Dupes again, played a little bit with Lem, played on that very good Starstruck squad, winning that second Kings Coast event. Another top 4 to go along with that. Top 8 in Ducks. He definitely has a good resume behind him. And maybe you want to see him be a little more offensive, get a little bit higher points per game, but his winning percentage is undeniable at 74.2%.
As a goaltender, I don't really notice Dupes too much when I play against him, but I mean he always seems to play with the same core guys, and that definitely shows with his consistent placing.
Absolutely, and bringing us into number 5, we have Geimer, one of the newer kids on the scene, staying with that prodigy scene, going from Xbox over to PSN, dominating, and you see those finishes in there. And the top 4, top 16, second place in Ducks. Prodigy, that squad has been great. I actually believe that may be a mistake because Prodigy won that season 4. So he does have a win there. And points per game over 1. And the winning percentage as well right there. Scoring factor above 30. That's always good to see. And Geimer is very creative when it comes to offense. He makes a lot happen. And he's been solid.
Geimer was actually my first teammate back in the Pepsi Cup last game. He was playing right wing back then, and that part of our game definitely wasn't working. So he switched over to lefty after I left Prodigy, and I mean, they've been clicking on all cylinders pretty much this entire title. So I mean, it really speaks for itself that the switch from right wing to lefty ended up being for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Rampage, we did not include the Gabseh tournaments in this. And Pogs, the first event was that Xbox event for CBJ. So I believe that was the season 4 that you guys won, not season 3. And moving on to number 4, we have Doughty playing with resilience, cohesion, royalty, and a little bit of time on ice. Points per game way up there at 1.2. Winning percentage is outstanding at 88.7%, but they have not found a way to win an event, coming in the runner-up in that Kings Coast Cup. They did make that Caps LAN and a couple of top 4 finishes as well, but they have not found a way to gain that championship. So it's a good thing they're winning in LG because they haven't done it in ESHL yet. And any thoughts on Doughty?
Doughty is the prime example of you build chem with the same people and you end up doing well. This kid will not turn on his console if Lem's not playing. And it shows because they're basically a one-man unit. They always know what they're going to do. And, I mean, the finishes speak for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to number 3. At number 3, we have official Mark, who stayed with composure for his entire tenure. We've seen him win a championship in that Sharks Pacific Cup. We've seen him have top 4 finishes, top 8 finishes, winning percentage above 80%, points per game just under 1. And Mark has been a staple on that composure roster.
I hate playing Mark. He's what there's only a few deep men that I legitimately hate playing, and I mean I'm not gonna out it and put myself at a disadvantage in the future, but there's a couple things that he does that just annoys the living crap out of me. And he's a good player. He's never predictable, and there's a lot of players that play on the blue line offensively that play very predictable from a goalie's point of view. And he's one of, like, I'd say a handful that definitely you don't know where he's going with the puck, shot or pass.
Absolutely. And I do want to point out a comment with Rhodes saying Doughty's in 12 leagues. What are you smoking? That is true. He does play a lot without Lem. He plays a lot with the West League. He has a couple West League championships as well. So he definitely does play without Lem, but chemistry is that biggest thing for that club. I mean, they play best when they're next to each other. And bring us into number 2. So at number 2, we have Guan. Guan, 1.28 points per game, 80% win percentage. He did win that Kings Coast Cup, and he's had a couple of top 4 finishes as well between Vertigo and Entourage, and he has been spectacular, one of the best. Can't say enough about him. And he makes a lot happen both defensively and offensively. He's someone you can rely on.
Yeah, I wish I had more to add, but I mean, I really just want to echo what I was just saying about Mark. The same with Guan. You really don't know what he's going to do, and he's essentially Mark and plays more aggressive than Mark at times. I mean, offensively, he's a problem, especially if he gets free ice and can get anywhere near the net. He becomes a serious problem.
Absolutely. And bring us into number 1. A lot of people will not be happy about this. I personally believe that Guan is number 1, but the community voted Grim at number 1, and it's because of where he's finished. You see all the first place finishes on there, second place as well, and he won a couple of those CBJ Gaming Cups as well. So he's over a point per game. He's got 75% winning percentage, deserves to be on the list. Maybe I wouldn't have put him at 1, but his resume between Icebreakers and Olympia is almost unmatched.
I feel the same. There's not much I really want to add to this. Placement wise, he's in the right spot on this list. Play style wise and playing against, I got at least one person ahead of him.
All right, and bring us into our recap. And here's the top 10 lefty list. We have Grim, Guan, Official Mark, Doughty, Geimer, Dupes, Luigi, Heroic Duck, Debbie, and Nude. That is your top 10 for lefties. Bring us into the righties. And here we go. We'll start with number 10, HP teammate in Briere. Spent some time on ice, Vertigo, no sympathy, denial, all that good stuff. Just under 80% winning percentage, over a point per game. You see the same things that plagued Duck, and it's eluding those first place finishes. They're so close. You see the top 4s, the top 8s. They're always in the mix as a top team, but just have not found a way to summit the mountain, and they're close. And Briere, very solid D-man.
Yeah, this guy plays with everybody. So I mean, the teammates he's lined with, and I mean just the variety it kind of dispels what at least I was talking about earlier, that just, playing with the same people.
You still there, Stone?
Oh, sorry. Yep, I was muting myself on the party. I was saying that he kind of disproves what I was saying earlier about playing with the same people really helps getting your placements a lot higher. Because, this guy plays with everybody, but he always seems to be in the conversation no matter who he's rostering with. He's always in the conversation clearly at, top 4, top 8 finishes.
Absolutely. Let's move on to number 9. And at number 9, Sam Delisle, and he's a staple in this community. BBB, Prophecy, Vertigo. Over a point per game, just under 70% winning percentage, a high scoring factor, 34.39. Couple of top 16 finishes, 1 top 8 finish as well. Very solid D-man, able to create offense, able to do his job defensively. Can't say, much more than that. He's a solid player all around.
Don't really have that much to add on that one.
And here we go to number 8.
This is an interesting one.
K-Cut. Go ahead.
No, I'll let you lead it off, and I'll say my 2 cents.
I was just going to say, K-Cut spent all of his time with BBB, and the stats speak for itself. Now, BBB did falter a little bit in some events, but you see the 2 top 8 finishes in those big events with Caps Gaming and Pacific Cup as well. And you can trust him. You can rely on him on the back end. Might not be as explosive as some of the other players on this list, but certainly deserves to be in the top 10.
Yeah, Dang's in chat saying that he had him at 4, and that's kind of what I wanted to go into. The most interesting thing about Kyle here is he obviously didn't play too much this year, but the name itself and the reputation that he has, even when he's just messing around playing in non-tournament games, he's still considered one of the best right D in the game. And it just goes to show that when you're consistent over a long period of time, that doesn't just go away just because you don't participate in a few events.
Yeah, and his name certainly still does echo throughout the community, even though he doesn't have more recent history, not playing in those Kings Coast Cups and stuff like that. But definitely people certainly remember the name. They know how tough he is to play against, and that's why he's on the list. And I do agree, Luigi. I think if he had played more, I do think he would be higher on this list. Recency bias.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I do want to remind everybody, if you are just joining us, this is not just a list from Stonewall and I. This was a list by the community. The community was polled. 30 of the game's top players were polled on this one. And those players ranked these guys from 1 to 10, sent it back to us, and we compiled the list based on that weighted point system. And at number 7, we have Dumoulin, and he is explosive offensively. He creates so much offense. I watched him a lot, especially on those CBJ gaming events, and he can do a lot with the puck. And if you blink, you might miss the play that he makes, and it ends up in the back of your net. And do you have anything to say on Dumoulin?
Yeah, he's really fun to play against, and he's fun to watch. To be honest with you, I'm just having it in front of me. When you hear his name, you would have thought that his finishes would have been higher, because he's that level of a player. So I don't know if they just kind of stumbled. Whatever teams he was on during those top 16 finishes just happened to stumble at the time. But I would have thought he had at least a couple more top 4s or top 8s. He definitely played to that level all year.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring us into number 6. And at number 6, we have Desi D playing with BBB, Icebreakers, Prodigy, and Denial as well. And 1.3 points per game. You can't ask for much more than that. He does have some championships under his belt at 74% winning percentage as well.
Yeah, Desi's another one of those annoying D-men, especially from a goalie's perspective. I genuinely don't like playing against him. He's very difficult to play against.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring us into number 5. Number 5, none other than MX Taylor Mateer. We know him, we love him. And Starstruck, he went on that run where they won the Kings Coast Cup, and I just saw how effective he was calling those games. He's just a difference maker with the puck. He can step in and snipe you short side in the blink of an eye, and he does his job defensively. He's very hard to beat one-on-one, and he adds offensive components to the game as well, and that's exactly what you want, and it's why he's top 5.
He's so consistent. I mean, I've run scrims with him. I've played a little bit of LG with him. He's super consistent. Another guy that I'm really and he has and I'll say this knowing that he has a win and 2 top 4s. I would have thought his placements would have been better because he's so consistently good. He never really makes any game costly mistakes.
And bring us into number 4 and some comments in the chat. Fog says best poke in 21. Kushni says way too low. And at number 4, we have Rux playing a lot of time with that Olympia squad. No mercy as well. And 1.2 points per game, scoring factor over 30, 75% winning percentage. He's won multiple events, Caps Gaming, Ducks Gaming, second place in the Sharks Pacific Cup, and you name it. He has the resume. He was a 2K League player as well. And he's just a solid gamer all around.
Personally, I find playing him and Grim together is very similar to playing Doughty and Lem, just in the sense of it's one cohesive unit. They all like that. It's those are probably 2 of the smoothest running D pairs that I run into event after event.
Absolutely. Bring us into number 3. Number 3, none other than Lemelin. And playing with resilience and cohesion, 1.7
points per game. Jeez.
That is unbelievable. 76.8 winning percentage. But much like Doughty, has not found a way to win that championship. They're always in the mix. They always have a good team, but have not found a way to win it all.
I mean, that's got to be the best group in the game right now that hasn't won, right? I mean, there's probably forwards watching this right now that aren't getting a $171 a game for points. I mean, that's ridiculous from the blue line.
Yeah, absolutely. And move us into number 2. And at number 2, we have Odie, who has won events and has a couple of top 8 finishes, top 16, top 40, you name it, winning that Sharks Pacific Cup. And he's a little bit lower at 1 points per game, but we all know what he can do with the puck. His winning percentage speaks for itself. They have that dominant puck possession game with composure. And for as much as he holds the puck, you'd think his points per game would be higher, but that's the game that they play. They will just chew down the clock in the offensive zone. You won't be able to get the puck from him, and then he'll make a pass, and that pass ends up in the back of your net.
Yeah, hard to put this guy 2, but I mean, when you see who number 1, it all makes sense.
And bring us into number 1, and none other than Regs. Very few arguments over who should be number 1. And anyone in the top 3, you could really argue for number 1. And
Definitely.
Regs coming in with Entourage and Icebreakers. First place finish, top 4, second place. These finishes are unbelievable. 1.19 points per game, 78.9 winning percentage, a scoring factor of 35.76 is very high for a D-man. And he does it all. Another player that really likes to hang on to the puck, but he will make plays happen while holding on to that puck. And he is stellar defensively, very hard to get by. He brings so much, brings that leadership, that winning quality. It doesn't matter what game he's playing. He's just a gamer, much like Rux. And a lot of the players on this list that are just good at what seems like everything. And Regs is at the pinnacle, whether it's 1v1 or 6s. He's at the top.
Reg's the alien, man. He's all about business. It doesn't matter the console. It doesn't matter the roster. He's coming in. He's getting top 4 or he's winning. It's nothing other than those 2.
Absolutely. And here we go with our top 10 right D recap. You have Regs, Odie, Lemelin, Rux, Mateer, Desi, Dumoulin, K-Cut, Delisle, and Briere to cap off our right Ds. And now here we go into the top 10 goalie list. And I'll let you take the lead on the goalies. You obviously have a lot more to say. You've played these guys a lot. You can divulge their stats and bring us through a goalie point of view. I'll let you run with the goalies.
So we got Denny here at number 10. He's definitely one of the more fun guys to play against. I kind of liken myself close to him talent-wise. It's always close games with him. It's very rarely we very rarely ever run into a blowout, whether it's a scheduled game or a scrim. Just a solid goalie. I think a lot of these guys will find on this list benefit from having similar guys in front of them, whether it's the same blue line or a solid center that can patrol the slot. And we'll see as we go farther down the list.
And I do want to comment quickly on Denny. We're having some comments in the chat from Dangs and Nuge about him being at 10. And I do agree. I think he should be a little bit higher on this list. Denny has proved a lot that he can just straight up bail you out of games. Even you said it yourself, you don't really see blowouts when Denny's in net. And he can find a way to steal you a game. I've played with him. I've played against him. Very quality goaltender. Yeah, absolutely. Move us into number 9 and give us your thoughts on yourself.
So I ended up at 9 somehow. Honored about it. It's kind of a weird spot to kind of talk about myself. I mostly played behind the same guys. The only variants I really played behind was for PlayStation, but for the most part, I pretty much played behind Sack, Psych, and Kinger for most of the year. From a goalie point of view, to me, those were always the 3 most important positions in terms of the positions that help me directly. 3 guys I love playing behind. I definitely think that attributes to how well I've done, and the times I haven't done well is when, I don't have one of or all 3 of them. But I mean, I genuinely did not expect myself to be on this list, but I am very humbled that I ended up on it.
And again, it kind of goes, you guys always finish top 16. You're always in the mix for playoffs. You don't get too much farther than that, but, you always make top 16, it seems like, with that one top 8 finish as well. And that core group was very hard to score on, and they're a big reason why. Let's move on to number 8. And bring us through Allz. What do you think of Allz?
Allz is interesting. He's probably one of the few guys on this list that I think hopped around teams the most. You can see on the screen, he's got 4 different finishes, but 3 different teams. And all 3 of those rosters, if I remember correctly, are, for the most part, completely different rosters. It kind of speaks to his level of play and what his fellow competitors think of him, that somebody playing in that many inconsistent scenarios can still get the respect of his fellow competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. I see some comments in chat too. A lot of guys are not knowing who Allz is. Allz is new to the scene, but don't make any mistake. Allz is a very, very good goalie, playing with not great teams and picking them up. And I think he's going to really make a name for himself in 22, even more than he did in 21. You see guys like Bob Jones not really knowing who he is, McFlurry as well. But he is a very, very good goaltender. I played with him last season at LG, and he stole us a lot of games. And I can't say enough about him. He's a good guy as well and great goalie. Yeah. Wall took a long break, and he came back, and Allz also kind of emerged into the scene at the same time. And let's move on. And here we go, Paralyzed with a BBB goalie. Give us your thoughts on Perry.
Yeah, Perry, for different reasons, I think is benefiting from the same thing Kyle was benefiting from, but at the same time is hurting him from it, meaning his name garners respect because people have played against him and for so long, and he's been good for so long that he was going to be on this list no matter what. But he definitely, has that great core in front of him, which, again, as a goalie, really helps you, because when you know how the guys in front of you are going to play, you can play more aggressive, and you know what spots to kind of give up. If the offside D has the back post, or you don't have to worry about the high slot because your center or your weak side wings got it. He's definitely, and we're going to see a few more above him, he's definitely one of the guys that probably benefits from that the most, which is the most helpful thing as a goalie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Tang still going off about the rankings. Again, it's a community ranking. It's where they think that these players are based on their own personal rankings. And we tallied all the points, and this is how we got our list. And that's why you see a weird list, because everybody, whether or not they deny it, has bias, and they're going to rank players based off of that bias.
100%.
And that's why you are going to see some weird lists.
This is
just kind of a fun thing that we did for the community.
This is definitely the most passionate position by far. I knew this was going to be the most passionate position just because, like I said, a lot of these guys don't bounce around teams. It's tough to find a reliable goalie, and when guys find them, they hold on to them. That's why Perry's been on BBB for 25 years.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of guys don't really talk about chemistry being important for a goalie. But as you just said, knowing how the guys play in front of you, what looks they give up on a regular basis, that's going to help you make more saves. Now let's move on to number 6.
So Charzin probably...
At number 6, we have Charzin. Oh, go ahead. My apologies.
I mostly just call him Charzin. I think I've seen some people call him Charzin. I'm just going to call him Charz. So Charz is mostly played with Prodigy up until recently, which we can kind of skirt over because that's not what this show is going to be about. Charz got a lot of these top finishes with Prodigy, kind of based off of the same thing that I was talking with the other guys. He played behind the same core. After the first rotation of roster players on Prodigy, they pretty much had the same 5 to 6 guys for the most part, and I think Charz definitely benefited from that. I think that's once they got that roster figured out, I'm pretty sure that's where the top 8 and the first all came from.
Yeah, and again, you see the first, second place finishes with that Prodigy squad. Top 16 as well, and Charzan's been a solid player. And I do have a couple other comments I want to go through. Hendry asking why Allz is in the top 10.
Grizz, I think we lost you, brother. Grizz, you there? Oop. Grizz, you there? Folks, we lost Grizz. All right, the show goes on. Grizz, just let me know when you're back, brother. All right, number 5, we got Shekel. Let's see, Shekel. Without repeating myself, he definitely is one of those guys that, again, he's got the resume, he's got the core group he's been playing behind. I think any other year, there's no way this guy is 5th. I feel like he's been a top 3, top 4 goalie forever, and I don't know if it was more so Sheck or if it was just, a couple guys just getting past him performance wise. It's just really, even knowing the list, it's really weird seeing him as a top 5, knowing that he's been, really a top 3 goalie for years. We got two victories here. Hold on, I think Grizz is coming back in here. Hold on 1 second. Welcome back, Grizz. We're talking about Shekel here.
I think we are back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you.
Right.
So we're talking about Shekel.
Like when you drag that Xbox thing over, looks like you closed it out.
What's that?
I said when you drag that Xbox companion app over, I think you closed out the Xbox party.
Gotcha. Okay. So what I was basically saying about Shekel is that he definitely benefits from the same couple things that I was mentioning earlier, that he plays behind the same defensive pieces core. And any other year, there's no way this guy is number 5. But I don't know, because this is really a poll, so it's hard to guess what the mix of people that we polled were thinking behind this, whether or not they think he more so had an off year, or if they just think the guys above him did that much better. Because as you know, he's been, top 4 is almost an insult. He's been top 3 for years. So seeing a 5 next to his name is almost weird.
Yeah, he certainly has the event history with the first place finishes and exclusively top 4 finishes. He doesn't face too many shots per game. You see it 7.68, but still has a very respectable save percentage and goals against. He's been a rock solid netminder for that Entourage club forever. And that speaks volumes to him. And again, seeing him at number 5 might be weird for some people, but
you don't want to know what I would do for 7.5 shots a game. That is such a blessing. That just makes everybody's job so much easier, and it's a testament to just the full team D that a group that's been playing together for that long how it benefits. And that stat right there is the benefit.
Absolutely. Let's keep rolling. We still have plenty to go here. And now here is Bob Jones. And Bob Jones says he conducted his own poll.
I'm glued into chat after this slide.
Position. Absolutely. And he is not number one on this. The fan vote, the community vote did not vote him the best virtual goaltender of all time, as he claims himself to be. You see all the top 8 finishes, the first place finish as well. Winning percentage over 70%. Amazing stats to go along with it. But at times, we've seen Jumpy Jones come out, and he'll get scored on in the last minute of a game. As we see him every once in a while do that, but nonetheless, top 5 goalie. Some would argue top 3, top 2, top 1, but very good goaltender, and that's why he's at number 4.
Bob Jones, the 4th greatest virtual goalie of all time, probably thinks there was a rigged vote on how he ended up this low, but it is what it is. To be honest with you, his placements are a little bit surprising. He's always with solid groups. For whatever reason, I thought he had more than one victory. But, I mean, he's always with solid groups. He always does really well. But there's no way he's happy about that number 4.
Definitely not. And let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we have the Wall. And the Wall, of course, spending his most recent events with Resilience and Starstruck, has not won an event yet. But you see 6th, top 8, top 4. He gets 10 shots a game. He doesn't give up much. And winning percentage could be better, to be honest with you, sitting at 56.6%. But the Wall we know and love, very good quality goaltender.
Yeah, Jones actually just made a really good point, and I'm probably never going to say that again in my life. He mentioned that the Wall was ranked higher than him, and Wall doesn't even have a win, which really speaks to how much of a community vote this was, that Wall has played that well, whether it be head-to-head or in scrimmages, that people really respect him. I mean, that says a lot, that you're considered the number 3 goalie in the game, or at least in NA, and you don't even have a tournament victory. To me, that
and
says
the other
a lot.
argument, yeah, absolutely. And the other argument is that, well, Shekel is behind Jones, and Shekel has won more than
exactly.
Jones.
Shekel's 5th,
So
and he's got
it does
multiple
go
wins.
both ways. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it does show how the community voted, and how the community is going to vote on who they think is the best based off of their personal experiences with and against that player, whether it's drafts, club, actual events, or whatnot. That's how the people voted, and that's what we're doing here. Bring us into number 2. At number 2, none other than Vane. Vane certainly has made a name for himself, has not won yet again, but top 4, top 8, top 16, you name it, he's always in it. His save percentage of .88 is unbelievable. 1.31 goals against, 80% win percentage. I mean, all he does is win. You see the teams that he was on, Resilience, Composure, Ice, Cohesion, very, very high quality teams, and he is a very high quality goaltender. Some would argue he should be number 1. He at one point was unanimous the best goaltender in the game, and our community vote says otherwise.
Definitely was at one point. I mean, if we had this vote a few months ago, I don't see how he doesn't. But just another guy that, like, you look at his stats and you're like, how does he not have a win? Like, if I can speak for myself and for pretty much every other goalie involved in this and watching right now, if I had an 88 save percentage and a 1.31 and no wins, someone's in trouble. Like, and he doesn't play with bad teams either. So it really speaks to the respect that he has earned, and a lot of these guys, especially on this position, that we have a goalie like Shekel, I hate to keep going back to him, at 5th with multiple victories, and we have now 2 goalies ahead of him that have no victories. So I don't know if that's more indicative of the respect that guys are getting or not getting, or if it's more so a reflection of the team that they're playing behind.
Well, I think both need to be brought in hand. And Bob Jones is asking, he doesn't have a win. How can someone be number 1 that hasn't won an event? Well, because maybe the best goaltender isn't on the best team, and that is possible. It does take a team to win an event.
Goalies can definitely lose you a game, but they cannot win you an event.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely need support. And if you lose a game 1-0, that's not on the goalie. And you can be the best player at your position and not have an event win. And that's just an attribute to the team that you're on and the players you're playing with.
Yep. Real life comparison, not to compare Vane to him, but I mean Connor McDavid is the perfect example of that. Best player in the game, crap team, barely makes the playoffs every year. It doesn't matter how good you are; it matters about the whole unit.
Absolutely. And here is Reigns. You see the first place finishes, the second place runner-ups, and just the one event that they missed playoffs at KCC number 2. 81 save percentage, 75% win percentage, 1.75 goals against average. And the stats probably tell you that Vane might or probably should have been number 1 versus Reigns on stats alone, but we did not go off of stats. We went off of the community vote and who thinks which goalie is harder to score on, harder to play against. The event history speaks for itself, a part of that Olympia squad, and Reigns has backstopped them forever and has been rewarded with multiple event victories.
I will say, I will come clean all game. This was my number 1 goalie in the game for me until I ran into Vane, the most recent event, and my mind completely changed there. And the reason I'd always felt like that was just the consistency. So I don't know if it was the recency bias that just got me off of that. I mean, there's people that, regardless of this, still will, fall on the sword for Vane being the number 1 goalie, and I don't really think they're wrong. It's honestly a toss-up at this point, especially where we're pretty much at the end of the life of the game. They both had such great stretches where they would have, undoubtedly been considered the number 1 goalies in the game. I don't think either one of them can be upset with falling in the top 2 because, I mean, it was very clear by the results that the top 2 were the top 2, and then there was everybody else.
Absolutely, and bring us into our top 10 recap. Lucas was asking about J Money. The community left J Money off of this list, and I'll run through the list. We have number 1, we have Reigns, followed by Vane, followed by the Wall, Jones, Shekel, Charazin, Paralyzer, Allz, Stonewall, and of course Denny at number 10. And there's no room for J Money on that list.
Yeah, don't bother asking about another name because I don't remember any of the other ones, but this is the only one I can speak to. I do remember J Money was 11 on this list. I don't remember any of the other 11s, but I do remember J Money fell just short of the top 10.
Yep, he was just short of the top 10, and a lot of people think that he stepped back as well in this game, but he does have that event history, playing with composure for so long, getting a lot of those event wins. And
he dealt with a lot of roster changes.
He dealt with a lot,
probably
of
more
roster
than most.
Changes. Yep, and he was left just outside of the top 10. And Hendry, you're laughing at the list, but you were a part of the list. You know what I mean? Like you were part of the voters, and there were 30 people that did vote on this, and that's our list. And bringing you in at number 10, left wing, Arctic Blur, playing on a plethora of teams and doing very well. Has not won an event, but a couple of top 16 finishes and a top 4. His points per games are way up there, 1.84. Winning percentage, not really what you'd want to see at 54.4%. Would want to see that higher. But again, for someone that's kind of been a util, and he's not a util, but he has util on some teams, and he's gone through a lot of lineup changes as well. Hard to find that core chemistry that he wants to stay at home with.
For me, this was probably the most misplaced name. I don't understand how he fell out of the top 5. I think he's an incredible left wing. I don't know how he had one top 4. I have a lot of respect for Blur. I think he's easily better than 10th, but the community voted him there.
Absolutely. Let's keep going. And at number 9, left wing, McLovin. And I actually like McLovin better at center than I do left wing. But the community voted him in at left wing. You see his points per game are electric, 2.18. Winning percentage, 70.2%. You see a top 4 finish, top 16, top 8. Always in the mix on the very good team as well, and has been there for a while.
McLovin, another great left wing. This was probably the most stacked position. Right wing was pretty stacked too, but this was the wingers were definitely tough. Another guy that it's really surprising to see him have only one top 4, especially playing in 8 events. 2 points per game. I mean, there's not really much more you can ask out of a winger.
Now let's keep it rolling at number 8. Number 8, we have Class Act, who very surprisingly only has one event to his name, that top 16 with Caps Gaming. But in that event, 3 points per game, scoring factor of 81, which is off the charts. And a lot of people respect him despite not having that event history.
You got to help me with this one because I didn't play him in that event, so I don't know him that much. How did he end up 8th? What's the rap on this guy?
Well, again, just one of those names that kind of came over to Xbox, and I believe he was on that Entourage team that won the original Caps gaming event, but he could not go. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hendry. I believe that was the case. I think, he played at LAN. He was the replacement to go to LAN. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, he's been around for a bit, but he just has not really played in any events, but he is a very well-respected left winger.
So, correct, did I hear you correct that he made it to LAN, but for whatever reason wasn't able to make it?
I think he was on their starting roster at left wing, but for whatever reason couldn't go. I think that was the case. I can't really remember if it was him that didn't go or if he filled in.
All right, well then that would explain why I'm a little unfamiliar with this name because I was aware of that event, but that was I hadn't really.
Oh, he was on. I'm sorry, he was on Resilience. I have my teams completely mixed up.
He was on the Resilience squad for the Caps
Yep.
LAN.
Yep. So he was on Resilience and couldn't make it.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. I had my guys all mixed up.
I was still relatively new in the LG space at that time, so that would explain why I wasn't as familiar with his name.
And here we go, moving right on to number 7. Rick Chel, the walking highlight reel, always tries to score those incredible goals, which sometimes holds him back in events, but does have a couple of top 4s, missed playoffs in Ducks, and a top 8 in Caps, 2.47 points per game. And that is just a tribute to his ability to put the puck in the net.
I'm going to come clean here. Every time I line up on Rick Chel, I think I'm going to smoke this kid. And he always finds a way to score one annoying goal. And it's so frustrating. So maybe I just need to up my respect for Rick Chel finally. But I mean, literally every single time he finds a way to score some annoying goal from the top of the circle or somewhere in the middle of the slot.
Oh, Rick Chel in the chat saying, bro, I U-turned for Cardsford Ducks. And that explains why they missed playoffs. Absolutely.
Oh, boy.
And I believe they also made it far in the last CBJ gaming event as well. Couple of events not on here. The Gabseh tournament's not on here. The CBJ gaming event number 5 also not on here. So a couple of high finishes not on here for some of the players. And at number 6, we have S-Bass. S-Bass playing with Royalty, Starstruck, and Composure. 1.9 points per game, 71.6 winning percentage. Has not really found a comfortable fit, a place to call home, but he has done well in events, and he is a well-respected player as well. He uses his speed well, hits a lot of those cuts on breakouts, and you see a couple of top 16 finishes, top 4 and top 8 has done well in the Kings Coast events. And what's your take on S-Bass? I haven't played with him that much. He seems to play with the same core group, but the things I have heard about him is that he can be a little toxic at times, and I've seen him play, and he's definitely a top tier player. And I almost wonder if reputations and the social game behind the actual game played into these rankings, because I feel like 6 is just a little low for him. Yeah, definitely could be low, but we'll keep it rolling. Moving on to number 5. And at number 5, we have Pulgs, one of the newer kids on the scene. Absolutely electric. A lot of people did call them the new kids on the block. Not really that anymore, because they have found a way to win some events, runner up in some events. Prodigy has dominated on the PSN side. They have fallen to, of course, that Grim-led team over there, but they have also beaten that team as well. So a lot of history going on between Icebreakers and Prodigy on the PSN side. On Xbox side as well, coming in second place in that Ducks Gaming. 2 points per game, 66.8 win percentage, and he's a high-flying winger. Got to mention his prowess in the versus game too, because he's some kids it translates better over to 6s than others. He's definitely one of those versus players that his defensive abilities translate over to 6s perfectly. Some guys, it took him a little while to kind of get there. Some guys are better than others. Most versus guys seem to be pretty solid on defense, but to not only be solid on defense and still hold that 2 points per game level on winger is top tier. Absolutely. Let's move right on to number 4. Marco goes 5-hole playing with royalty, starstruck, composure. First place finish in that Kings Coast event. And that Kings Coast event, that one that they won with Starstruck, that was just a phenomenal run out of them. Marco, a huge reason for that victory. 1.67 points per game, 69.5 win percentage, scoring factor almost at 60. And 60 is really kind of like that fine line that you want to be around for top players. And if you're anywhere above that, it just increases your value. But Marco, very, very solid player. Has a first place win, has some top 16s, top 4, top 8, you name it. Always does well in events.
A lot of these wingers at the top, top 4, top 5 area, you're going to see that the scoring factor is near 60. As a goalie, Marco's super annoying to play against, wicked annoying to play against. I mean, he shoots weird shots. He shoots from weird spots on the ice. Just an unpredictable player, and always seems to find one annoying goal that helps his team win.
And I do want to address a comment in the chat from CT. He said, Shock's not making it with Class Act making it and not playing is funny. I just do want to mention that the stats are a supplement only. The stats here are just a graphic for you guys to look at and digest what these players have done in their event history. This is not what was voted on their statistics. The votes were basically just who thought who was 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe a popularity contest, but that's what we wanted to run with. We did want to poll the community on this. I myself did not vote. I didn't take any role in voting on this list. So I do want to throw that out there as well. But I will say that the stats do not represent where players are on the list. It was simply just a community vote. And moving on to number 3, we have Boyle. Boyle is one of the most electric young wingers in the game, and he hits those cuts so fast, very hard to defend. Second place finishes in Kings Coast, in CBJ, has not found a way to get that victory, but his points per game off the chart at 2.6, scoring factor at 70. We talked about wanting to be around 60. He's at 70, and that speaks volumes to his ability to put the puck in the back of the net. Crazy
player to play against. He's one of the fastest guys in the game. He's one of the fastest guys. He's the fastest guy on the ice every time he plays. And it's super overwhelming to play against him, whether you're a D-man or a goalie. I mean, speed kills in this game. 2.6 points a game is insane. Kind of crazy that he hasn't won an event either, because he's always on those dangerous teams that you don't want to run into during the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep on rolling here. Number 2 left wing is Hendry. Hendry, of course, as electric as Boyle, but has that event win, has the event history, all top 4 finishes aside from that PSN Season 4 CBJ top 16. Won't really include that because that was just kind of a throw together mixed team. When he's with his club, it's top 4 every time. You see 79.3 win percentage, scoring factor off the charts, even higher than Boyle at 76.57, and points per game at 2.77. When you need a big goal, Hendry will score that goal for you, and just can't say enough about it.
Entourage is one of those teams that's basically been chalk for top 4 finishes every event. All their stats on the players that ended up on these lists are going to reflect that. I don't know why, but I had a couple people reach out to me. I did leak the list to a couple people just to kind of get feelers on what the result ended up. And I had a couple people think that he was too high at 2. I'm not going to out those people, but I think they're absolutely insane. I think he's perfectly fine where he is. 2 points.
I think that the top 3 of the left wings are the top 3 left wings.
Oh, 100%.
I think you can interchange them at any time.
Yep.
But, I mean, to say that he shouldn't be in that top 3
Insane.
is preposterous.
Insane. 76 scoring factor, 2.7 points a game, both outlandish numbers, to be honest with you.
And moving on to our number 1 left wing, Gabseh, playing most of his time with Olympia, a little bit with Entourage and the Icebreakers as well. Again, that Entourage team that you're looking at, that was a PSN team for 1 season. You see all the first place finishes, and that's why he is the number 1 left wing. First place, second, another first that's not on here. And 2.37 points per game, 60.26 scoring factor, a little bit lower than the other 2 left wings, but certainly does his job, knows what it takes to win it all. and that's why he's here at number 1.
I don't know what's going on with Kings Coast, if they're like playing with their feet in their controllers or if they're playing with the controllers upside down. But I mean, these guys are also chalk for top 4 every event. I got a feeling they're probably going to finish better than top 64 or top 8 this final Kings Coast.
Absolutely. And here's our top 10 left wing list. We have Gabseh, Hendry, Boyle, Marco, Pulgs, Espes, Rick Chel, Class Act, McLovin, and Blur. That rounds out your top 10 for left wings. Let's dive into the top 10 right wings. And at number 10, we have Karma. And Karma, 1.94 points per game, 70.7% win percentage, has finished top 16 a couple of times, top 8 once, has not found a way to win in recent history. And what do you have to say about Karma?
Loved playing with him for the time that I did. I can't remember exactly which events those were on there, but we definitely probably should have finished at least a round better in both of the events. I think more than anybody else in this list, he probably benefited from the social game. Not to say that he's not a top 10 player, but one of the more liked guys around the scene. I don't really know anybody that doesn't like Karma. He's just one of the nicer guys out there.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And Karma is a very good player, but I do think there are a couple guys behind him that are probably more deserving of this spot on the list. But hey, being a nice guy pays off sometimes, and it paid off here with him at number 10. And here we move on to number 9 right wing. We have the heavyweight champion of the world, self-proclaimed, of course, in Fog, playing with Resilience, Sixth Sense, Prophecy, Denial. I mean, you name it. He's played everywhere. And he hasn't found a way to win. And I think the one thing really holding him back is the fact that he jumps teams every other season. I mean, they finish second place, they break up. They finish fourth place, they break up. They finish top 8, they break up. And I'd really like to see him find a crew to stick with and see if they can win an event and stay together for more than one season. You look at his points per game off the charts at 2.23. Scoring factor is 70. Winning percentage is 75.5. The stats are all there. The winning an event is not.
Fog is for the streets, man. That man plays with everybody. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he finished top 4, top 6 in that LAN event too.
I believe he did, yeah.
I don't know who he's playing with right now, but he definitely seems motivated to come back stronger in 22. So he'll probably be back in that top 8, top 4 grouping pretty much every event next year.
Absolutely. Let's move on to number 8. And at number 8, call me Jacko, also playing with a lot of teams as well. And one of the better players in this game. You could put him anywhere. Center, right wing, left wing, does not matter. We have him at number 8 on right wing on our list. And he is a player that elevates everybody around him. He makes everybody better. 2.21 points per game, 65.61 scoring factor, winning percentage at 78.2. And you see that he hasn't won any of these recent events either.
He's one of the guys on here that I somehow have never run into. I know for a fact my consistent top 16 bounces are definitely to blame for that, but I don't really run into him very much in tournaments. Another super nice guy. Everybody seems to like him. Doesn't really seem to have preference as to who he plays with. He's just really happy to just kind of play with people he enjoys playing with.
Yeah, and I see some comments in the chat. Jack was on Olympia for like 3 days. Oh man, that exchange on Twitter.
I forgot about that.
Hilarious.
That was great.
They paid for the video and he got replaced, and they still use that same video to introduce the new guy. That was just hilarious. At number 7, we have Soilos, and Soilos playing with that Starstruck squad as well as that Cobra Kai club. That first place finish. I keep talking about this Kings Coast event, and I just remember it so well. Obviously, I was broadcasting that event, and Soilos just completely dominated Entourage with his forechecking abilities. Both Regs and Guan were overwhelmed, which is something that I have not seen before on a forecheck. He caused both of them to make mistakes leading to a goal before, and that's just, I mean, I cannot say enough about that because that does not happen to 2 world-class defensemen, and Soilos made both of them make mistakes and found a way to beat Entourage and win that event.
I'll say this right now. Of all the names that are involved in these lists, this name I have the most problem with where they finished. There's no way in hell this guy's not a top 5 right wing. Like
Yeah, I agree.
this alone tells me he's the most underrated player in the game. There's no way there's 6 right wings better than him. I don't know if I don't know if it was the slow start at the beginning of the game cycle, but I mean, obviously, as you can see, he improved event after event. There is no shot there's 5 guys better than him in this game. None, no shot whatsoever.
He is certainly disgusting. It's not just the forechecking. He has the thumbs to go along with it, the playmaking, the vision. He is the total package when it comes to right
Doughty,
wings.
you can say he's not underrated, but some knuckleheads decided there's 6 people ahead of him, and I think that's completely wrong.
Henry said Lowe's could easily be number 1 if someone told him to stop touching grass. And I mean, the stats speak for itself, and I mean, he is just a phenomenal player. And at right wing, number 6, we have Canadians 27. Of course, that is Cad playing with Prodigy, 2.3 points per game. And Cad is another player that just knows how to really use his speed up the boards and then cut inside at the last second to make a guy miss. And he has first place finishes, second place finishes, top 32, top 16. His event history is all over the place in terms of where they finish, but always in the mix. You see the progression of this player, of this Prodigy squad. I mean, I remember watching Prodigy when they first came into the mix from Hut and Versus over to the Sixes scene, watching them struggle to make the Sixes plays that you need to make to win games into now calling them winning championships over on those CBJ events. And it was a pleasure watching that, watching them turn into Sixes players, and they proved to everybody that you can do that.
Cad's another guy that was part of that early Prodigy team that I was on, so I can bring a little perspective to when they first got going. At that time, like I said, Geimer was at right wing, Cad was center, and you could tell they had the defensive skill of Versus players. I think the best part, aside from getting a solid blue line, aside from getting a solid roster and not rotating players in and out constantly, the best thing that team did was put Cad on right wing and Geimer on lefty, because Geimer clearly turned into one of the better lefties in the game, and putting Cad at center put him in too much of a defensive position. While he's good defensively, I think he's good enough defensively where that team can sacrifice some of the defensive importance of a right wing because you're getting the benefit of his offensive prowess. Like to be honest with you, I think 6 is a little low on him too, but I can't speak enough about that 2 position change that they made. That to me was the single biggest thing that helped that team go from a top 16, top 8 to, I mean, first, second, first. They've been in the conversation every event ever since.
Yeah, it's just really tough with right wings because right wing is by far the most stacked position, and it just seems like it's full of top 3, top 4, top 5 players, and there's only 10 spots to pick from. Move us on into number 5. At number 5, Kush Nasty, playing on a plethora of teams as well. Does have a little hiatus because he got himself into some trouble.
Free Kush.
But you do see, free Kush. But you do see the event history is there. Top 16 all the way around. Some second place runner-up finishes as well. A couple of top 8s. And point per game, 2.26. Winning percentage of 76. Scoring factor 65. Just a very unique player. He has all the skill to go around, can deke you in and out, and he can just make you miss in the blink of an eye. Very solid player.
Personally, I think some people are going to disagree with me on this. Personally, I think him and Boyley are very similar in their play styles. They like to play with speed. The wingers were stacked, man. Like, I feel like 5's low for him too, but everybody above him is a good player, but as we're getting closer to 1, I'm getting reminded that, there's a lot of good wingers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Move us into number 4. We get into the nitty gritty. And at number 4, we do have a tie for 3rd place. So at 3 and 4, they were tied with the same amount of points.
Before we get into Tendy, just to kind of go over the tie, break down the point system on how that worked again, especially for anybody that missed that explanation earlier.
Yeah, so basically we pulled 30 people. These 30 people were given a list of 15 to 20 names and were also told they could add in somebody if they felt that we missed somebody. They ordered their own top 10. And in that top 10, we had a point system. So If you were given first place, you would get 10 points. If you were given second place, you'd be getting 9 points. And we added up those point totals, and that's how we got here. And so again, for 3 and 4, these players do have a tie.
So if somebody got second place by one person and got 10th place by another person, that essentially equaled one first place vote because it came out to 10 points, correct?
Well, so you do, yeah, but you do add it differently. But yeah, I mean, it still is 9 and 1, but yeah, adds up to 10. So that would be like one first place vote.
Mm-hmm.
George was not top 10, Hendry. I mean, he took basically most of 21 off when you guys brought in Guan, right? So, you know,
I'm almost positive George's name was thrown in that list, though.
It was in the list, but he did not make top 10.
Right.
So moving on to Tendy, 1.97 points per game, 81.3% winning percentage. You see he won the Shark-specific Cup with composure, a couple of top 4 finishes, top 8, top 16. Always in the mix, always makes playoffs, always gets to that second round, and sometimes further as well. With that event victory, Tendy, a very big part of that heavy possession game that composure knows and loves. He just really works you hard down in the corner, makes you miss, and then finds his guy open in front, and can't say enough about it. And move us into our number 3, also tied for 3. We have none other than Rocket. Rocket's points per games off the chart. And for Hendry asking if anyone has a higher scoring factor, it is Rocket at 80.4. That is an unbelievable number for a scoring factor to go along with an unbelievable points per game at 3.17. He has the victories under his belt. You see, he did miss that one Kings Coast Cup, which is blasphemy that team even missed playoffs. I believe that was that Olympia squad. And He's also played with composure and resilience, always on a top team, always in the mix, gives your team a very good shot to win any game. And he's going to get a backhand breakaway goal almost every game. And the only way to beat him is to find a way to stop that breakaway attempt. And it's just incredible what he's done.
Not to skip over Tendy, but Tendy, one of the nicer guys in the scene. Definitely similar to a lot of the other guys on composure in the sense that just takes weird shots. As a goalie, he's annoying to play against because he always finds a way to get in close and just takes weird shots that you're not ready for. Rocket, I mean, scoring factor of 80. Good Lord. Guy's right trigger might be broken, but does it really matter when he's giving you 3 points a game?
Unbelievable. Moves into number 2. And at number 2, Fisher, in my opinion, the best off-puck winger in the game, and he's very hard to contain, playing with Entourage, and then, of course, on PSN Icebreakers, a lot of first-place finishes, top 4. Top 4 is a lock for this club, and Fisher, 2.42 points per game, 81.4 winning percentage, scoring factor nearing 70, and it's just incredible what him and Lucas are able to bring to the table in terms of chemistry. Certainly one of the top duos you think of when you do think of chemistry pairings, and they find a way to hit each other backdoor, and maybe the most, not underrated, but most rated, most dangerous one-timer in the game. You think you have them tied up 1 second, you blink, and now the puck's in the back of your net on a one-time slap shot where he had no space at all. And it's really, I can't talk enough about his off-puck game, but even on puck, he runs a bigger build as of recently, and that bigger build allows him to shield guys off the puck, turn guys inside out, and find his man backdoor as well. So it's not just the off-puck movement, but on-puck equally as good.
I think two of the things that you were mentioning really feed off of each other, being one of the better off-the-puck wingers in the game, and, I mean, I can't really think of anybody that scores more one-timers from the slot than this guy. And his ability to find space, and not just find space, but create space, whether it be like a fake to one direction and then kind of either stopping his momentum or changing direction to find or create that open space for the one-timer. Those two skills really go hand in hand. They're not isolated skills. They definitely feed off of each other.
I mean, it's like that Ovechkin one-timer. You know that it's coming, and you still cannot stop it. And it's a tribute to how good he is. But at number 1, we do have Gilly, a monster right winger, can turn nothing into a goal just out of nowhere. And you think you have him cornered, and then boom, cuts inside, pucks in the back of your net. He is electric, elevates every player around him. 2.31 points per game, 69.04. Nice scoring factor. 63.4 win percentage. He did win that Ducks gaming event, has a couple of top 4, top 8, top 16, always a lock for playoffs. And he is just one of those players that's good at everything.
I think more so than all the other skaters, what I was saying about goalies, where you're more so, people seem to have voted on goalies on the goalie, not the finishes. How difficult is this guy to play against? I think Gilly, more than all other skaters, kind of benefited from that same mindset. Because, I mean, another guy that you're like, really, only one win? I mean, he's been undoubtedly the best right wing for most of the life cycle, if you want to give part of the life cycle of the game to Rocket. But just like, he's on the ice, you're aware of it. You're not, oh, we're playing Gilly. You know it's Gilly before you even line up.
And different players, too. I mean, Rocket and Gilly, very much different styles, but very effective either way. And here's a recap of our top 10 right wings. We have Gilly, Fisher, Rocket, Tendy, Kushny, Cad, Soilos, Jacko, Fogg, and Karma. And this list is stacked, chock full of talent.
It's so stacked. Honestly, 5, 6, and 7 easily should be all considered top 5 in my opinion. But I mean, you can't really argue with 1 through 4, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And let's keep moving. We finally get to our centers. What everybody's been waiting for. There will certainly be controversy with this one. And bring us into number 10.
I think this is going to cause the most uproar besides the goalies.
Absolutely. And at number 10, the great MP7, Bone, playing on just a number of teams. And his finishes, not very good. Just winning 55% of his games, a very low scoring factor as well. But when you talk about centers, it's not all about scoring factor. It's about being in the right position and supporting your team to help ultimately get the win. But again, as you see, these event finishes, not great for him. Always either on the outside looking in or first round exit, but nonetheless, a very solid player. He has not found a team to fit his talents. And that's certainly a shame, because you want to see a player that is this good get on a good team and find a way to compete at a high level.
I mean, I can safely say this, and honestly, if Bone's in here, he knows that I don't mean this with any disrespect. The event history shows it from this year. This very clearly was a social vote and a reputation vote, because obviously he hasn't had the best year, but people still know what kind of guy he is in party. They know what kind of guy he is on the ice. He just, I mean, 5 different events, 5 different teams. You don't really need to comment on that. That pretty much speaks for itself. But I think this definitely this one vote alone showed that the social aspect and the, I guess you'd call it the reputation aspect of the lists definitely came into play with some guys more than others, more so with Bone.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move right along. One of the new kids on the block, the young gun, the young phenom, Own the Blue, spending time with ice and composure. 2.37 points per game, scoring factor over 60, winning percentage nearing 70. And he has not won an event yet, but he has had a couple of very nice finishes, top 4s, top 8s, all around. I believe he just finished top 2 in the last CBJ event, so he does have a runner-up finish as well. And he loves to shoot the puck. You can't leave him alone in the high slot, or he will find a way to put that in the back of the net. Very solid center all around.
OTB! Another kid versus kid. His defensive game translates. All these young kids up and coming that are coming from the versus scene, they already have the defensive game locked down. I think the hardest transition that I'm seeing to sixes is always going to be 3v3, because those kids just seem to take a little bit longer on the defensive game. This kid came in, he already had the defensive game, and he's just soaking up like a sponge from all these bigger players and bigger teams on learning, adapting, and building on his offensive game. And it shows. I mean, he had 2, I mean, for what we think of OTB, top 32, top 16, that's not really that impressive. That second Kings Coast, a lot of people had some weird finishes. Olympia was top 64. It is what it is. But right. It's proof that there's guys that know how to play sixes, and if you find somebody that's willing to listen, that has the skill to do what you're instilling in them, I mean, he's the literal example of growth in a player from the beginning of a game to the end of the game.
Yeah, I just can't say enough about him and the development he's had as a player. Like you said, acting like a sponge, playing with elite talent, but learning from elite talent, learning what you need to do to also not only play with, but beat and play against elite talent. And I do want to say, shout out to Bernsey popping in the chat. How we doing, Bernsey? Bernsey will be on the show at some point to kind of divulge what he's been doing and kind of talk about a couple different things, maybe away from the game. And that, more on that later. We'll get to number 8. Number 8, the center for resilience and cohesion. He is not left Lemon Doughty's side. It is Rotes. And at 1.7 points per game, 50 scoring factor. Not going to jump out at you, but he does his job. And once again, another member of this club that has been plagued by the inability to win it all. You see the second place finish, top 4 finish, top 8, always in the mix, always a team that you need to look out for, but has not found a way to win yet. And Rotes is a garbage man. He sits in front and he just waits until Lem or Doughty will find him, whether it's a turd and a tip-in goal. But one thing he does struggle with, I kind of wish that we had face-off stats. I think that he does struggle with face-offs at times. I know Lemon Doughty, I always hear them complaining about his inability to win important draws. So maybe something he'll look to improve on going into 22.
Rote's probably one of the more consistent guys. Yeah, like you said, he's a menace out front. I feel like every time I play with him, it's similar to McFlurry. Not as like dramatic as McFlurry, but definitely like a garbage guy out front. Like that's his bread and butter, and he's cool.
He's not explosive, but he really does his job, and he's effective at what he does.
This man is so content with pulling up a lawn chair and sitting his butt right in front of the goalie and just letting Doughty and Lem go tic-tac-toe for a minute 30, and with 20 seconds left on the power play, just either get the rebound or a tip goal. Perfectly cool.
Hey, knowing your place is equally as important, because you know that you have 2 defenders on the back end that love having that puck. Let them go to work and let them be the playmaker and just do your job and get open. And let's move on to number 7, Ethan C. Ethan C. playing a little bit with Prodigy. He is disgusting, has thumbs for days, and you see the 2.05 points per game, winning percentage 68.8. Scoring factor under 60, but right there, a couple of second place finishes, a top 8, a top 16. Ethan, another player that ran himself into a little bit of trouble, saying some things he probably shouldn't have said, and had to miss some events as a result, but a very, very high caliber player.
I believe of all the names, he was affected by the social vote the opposite way the most. 7 definitely feels low, and I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat that seem to feel the same, that 7 feels a little low. I don't know if it's because more so because of like outside of the game stuff, or if it's just like only the 4 events. It's hard to tell without asking all 30 people that we pulled for it. But yes, I don't know. 7 feels kind of low for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to number 6 and see what else we have in store. And at number 6, we have Heroism. And Heroism, a couple of second place finishes, hasn't found a way to win, but they did also miss playoffs. Instinct that won Kings Coast Cup, but a very effective player, runs every kind of cut you could imagine, runs that big body up the middle, very hard to play against, and he's very good at shielding the puck, a very good playmaker, 2.18 points per game, scoring factor 63.1, winning percentage of 62.8, and some very good finishes with his event history. 63
scoring factor for centers is very high. There was only a few wingers that were really in like that 70 range, but 60% of the goals going through the center. You really like seeing a center that, I mean, at this level is more important defensively and neutral zone wise. So a 60% scoring factor is really good. I mean, that's a luxury that Instinct has that not a lot of other teams have.
Yeah, and he's saying he needs a right wing in finals. And I mean, he's very explosive. He makes a lot happen. He takes that offensive centerman role very seriously. and he's a player that can just make a lot happen, a true playmaker at the center position. Let's move on. And at number 5, what you guys have all been waiting for, I've seen a couple of guys just waiting for his name to pop up. We finally have Sitful, and he does have an event win under his belt with Prodigy, and he does have a couple of top 8 finishes, a second place finish on PSN as well. And here's a player who's not as offensive as the player we just saw, but a player who fits his role perfectly.
I think he's one of the centers that can really fit in a lot of different rosters. Like he's always playing the game. I mean, the guy's revered as a threes legend. So I mean, he's just a grinder. He's always the first guy that gets to the max level. I can't really think of too many other centers that really fit. The center's a really important position, and I know a lot of people know that, but it speaks a lot to him that he seems to seamlessly fit into a lot of different lineups and a lot of different groupings. I know he only played with those 3 groups, but I can tell you for sure that those 3 teams, he didn't play with 3 rosters over 8 events. He played with a lot more than 3 rosters.
Yeah, he's definitely been bouncing around, and Hendry brings up a good point. This was Sit's worst year ever, but he does have an event win with Prodigy. You can't ignore the PSN side of things. And while Sitful he definitely has taken a step back from what he was, he's still a very effective player. And that's why he's at number 5. Let's move on to number 4. And at number 4, we have Mr. Hit That, playing a lot of puck with composure, and another player that just fits that glove that is that possession game out of composure. And he's someone that just makes a ton happen from the center position, whether it's leading the charge on the breakout, finding a way to break the trap, or once he's in, hitting give and goes, finding a way to just snipe the goalie, has a high points per game, decent scoring factor as well, and has that elusive event win to go along with his event history.
Yeah, not quite 60, but another guy that's pretty much there at 60% for scoring factor as a center, which I mean is just really huge for a team. The one thing I've at least noticed with Nick is that he's whoever's the util on Nick's team for center, you're getting at least a game, because that guy's gonna miss at least one night of games.
Yeah, the one downside about Hit That, he misses a decent amount of games.
That center util spot on composure is the best util spot in the game, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But I mean, when he's on the ice, he's a menace.
All right, let's move on to number 3. At number 3, and you can argue, could be 2, could be 1. In my opinion, probably the best center is J. Claus, spending time with Entourage, Starstruck, Icebreakers, and Olympia. 4 teams that have all won it, and you see his event finishes first, second, first, top 8, top 4, top 8. And he is just unbelievable. Every time I call his games, he finds a way to not only tie a game, but win a game late. And he's somebody that you can lean on to make every play that you need made for your club. Over 2 points per game, scoring factor of 57, win percentage of 71.3. Just a premier player in this league. Makes every single player he plays with better because of his play style. Finds a way to get everybody involved and takes matters into his own hands when his team needs him.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong before I kind of go a little bit deeper. He obviously won an event with Starstruck. He was on one of the event-winning teams for Entourage, correct?
Yes, he won that LAN event, the first Caps Gaming, which is
this year, this cycle. He won one of the Lucas, you're in here. Was he on one of those event-winning rosters? Because I'm almost positive he's got to be either the only, and think about this. I think he's either the only, and we'll forget about PlayStation because they're barely real. Xbox events. He's got to be either the only guy or like one of 2 guys that have won an event on different teams. I can't think of anybody else that won because Olympia's basically been the same group. Entourage won a couple. Starstruck won, but I don't think anybody other than I don't think anybody other than J. Claus on that Starstruck team played on any of the Entourage teams.
And Hendry said they only won one event this year, and it was with Trevor, so he was not on that team. But
okay,
I know you're saying like so ignore PSN, but he did win an event with PSN.
Gotcha.
Multiple.
Right. So then those 2 events are on PSN. Okay. So I was misremembering.
Yeah, all those CBJ events that you see, except for season 1 CBJ, is PSN.
Season 1 was Pepsi Cup, correct?
2, 3, yeah, and 2, 3, 4, and 5 were all on PSN. Let's move on to number 2, Scary Joey. Scary Joey Electric, another player you could argue that probably should be number 1. 1.86 points per game, scoring factor of 53, winning percentage of 79.9. Has a first place event win, has a second place event win, top 4 as well. Just an electric center, and much like J Claus, just elevates everybody around them and finds a way to win games when you need him to.
This, to me, more so than the other positions, this top 3 was the most interchangeable. I think all 3 of these guys, not to pour water on them, I just think that they're kind of like how the goalies had the top 2, and the results showed it. The top 2 were really like in their own class. I think these top 3 centers are kind of in their own class, and then it drops off a little bit to 4. Any of these 3, I think you can, skill wise, they could have ended up anywhere in the top 3, and I would have been completely fine with it.
And without further ado, bring us into number 1. And at number 1, McFlurry. Obviously, having those event wins, Caps, Ducks, top 8 in Kings Coast, top 16 over on PSN, 2.47 points per game. Absolutely electric. 63.84 scoring factor, 74.5 win percentage. And McFlurry, just one of those players that is a walking highlight reel, and you don't see that a whole lot at center. A lot of centers do value the defensive side of the game more, but McFlurry is right up there with the best goal-scoring wingers and finds a way to just make that play in through the neutral zone, breaking a trap by himself and finding a way to put the puck in the back of the net. He is just a remarkable center. And like you said, a lot of these players are interchangeable. For a lot of this list, there are groups, 1, 2, and 3 can be mixed out. 4, 5, and 6 can be interchanged. That's how a lot of this list is for me. And that's our list. Let's take them through the recap of the centers.
Before we get to the recap, I do want to say something specific about Flower, because me specifically, he is so annoying out front. He literally made me change the way I play. And it's close enough to the end of the game where it wasn't really a secret, but there was a point where I had lost like my 6th game straight to these guys, and I was just sick of it. And I'm looking back on a VOD on what I can do better, and every time I would lose the puck, it was always because he's either getting a tip or getting some loose puck out front. And he is single-handedly the reason that I've told other goalies to start doing this, and some of them did, some of them didn't. I started telling goalies that they need to get at the top of the crease on a blue line shot, because you need to lessen the distance between the guy making the deflection and the net, because the more ice that you give, the more dramatic the deflection is. He single-handedly made me change that entire part of my game, and is why that I play the way I play right now. He's a huge reason for that. That takes a that takes a lot to be that good to literally change how another person plays.
Absolutely. And moving on to the recap, McFlurry, Scary Joey, J Claus, Mr. Hit That, Sitful, Hero, Ethan C, Rhodes, Own the Blue, and MP7 rounding out our centers. And we have one last slide for you guys, and bring us into that last slide. And I'm going to talk about some of the closing remarks. And first off, just want to thank you guys all for joining us. This is not a one and done for this podcast. This podcast will be a recurring thing. We have a lot planned for you guys, and a little bit about what we want to do with this show. We really want to do something different here, do stuff that has not been done, and find a way to get the community involved, not just in a community vote. Obviously, that's more of like a popularity contest thing, but we want to get to know the players in the league and getting to know what you guys have to say about not just playing the game, but the social and mental aspect of this game. A lot of what we're going to do, we want to bring on pairs of the elite teams on to talk about their experiences, meeting guys at LAN, the toll that it takes to really be the best, how much you guys have to grind the game, all that stuff. We really want to get guys on for interviews. And if you and a teammate of yours are willing to come on for an interview, our DMs are open. We want to start having these interviews as soon as possible. But that's not all we're going to do. We are going to get into the mental health check side of things as well. Bring guys on just to talk about, their off-ice experiences, not just related to the game. We want to have a different podcast for you guys, and it's going to be a lot about ESHL. We will also cover LG at times. We will do broadcasts but interviews are going to be our biggest thing moving forward. We want to get you guys on the show and have, you guys talk to the audience.
It can't be stressed enough. This has been in the works for a while, and I hope a lot of guys would agree that the esports side of things really deserves like a content hub and just something that we can kind of integrate everybody, whether it be talking about silly stuff about Pele asking for wins in a tournament to interviewing Bob Jones, which, Bob, I see you in chat, brother. There is no chance in hell we are starting a podcast and you are not going to be one of the first interviews. We will make it happen. There might need to be some guidelines laid out beforehand, but I guarantee you will be on.
PG-13, all right? PG-13, Jones. We would love to have you on. We want the guys that will get guys riled up, the guys that are not afraid to call other players out. That's what we want. We want to get to know you guys. We want you guys on the show, and we want you guys to really feel like you are at home with this podcast.
I won't speak for Grizz, but I mean, I kind of held back a little bit on this because we're more so just kind of presenting results that were handed to us. This isn't going to be like a cookie cut presentation where, we got to compliment everybody 3 periods through their game. We're going to get a little cutthroat when people deserve it. And if somebody's second tagging during an esports event or begging for wins in DMs, like, we're gonna call you out. Like, this is gonna be the space where we can all kind of laugh together and build some content, because the space needs it. It's it's time for the content of just forum posts of pre and post draft results to end. Like, we need a little bit more to kind of bolster the esports side of things.
We want it to be interactive. We want you guys involved as much as possible, and you guys are the driving factor of why we are starting
100%.
this. And you guys are going to keep the wheel turning. And thank you guys, everyone who showed out tonight. Leaving good comments, bad comments, it all helps us. Whether it's feedback on, hey,
we lost him again, chat. Can you believe it? It's brutal. And this time, I think it's my fault because I just looked down at my Xbox and it's off. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. This is going to be the end. We do not have a date for the next broadcast, but ample time will be made for it. We will make an announcement beforehand. I believe it's going to be an interview. I believe I know who it's going to be, but I'm not going to mention that now. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody that threw a follow. I saw a few gifted subs. That was really nice of you guys. Appreciate that. And we will see you again soon. Take care, guys.